On Monday, Israeli F-35 fighter planes launched 6 missiles at the Iranian Consulate in the capital of Syria, Damascus. And this consulate is located right next to the Canadian embassy. So this Israeli airstrike killed at least 13 people, including a top commander of the Quds Force of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It killed this top commander. It also killed his deputy, and a total of at least 13 people have died, some of whom could be Syrian. Now, Iran has vowed to avenge this airstrike, and this could lead to a significant escalation of the ongoing Middle East conflict, the tensions, the war in Gaza, and all that. So you could see an escalation, and you could see this move beyond Gaza. And that could have significantly serious implications for the entire region, including nations like Russia, nations like India, and so on. So let's find out what could happen next and what kind of instability this could cause in the region. Please subscribe and let's find out what could happen. This video is sponsored by my geopolitics course, Geopolitics from First Principles. The link is in the description below. So first of all, this airstrike has happened on Monday. Now, Iran, I would say rightfully said that this airstrike constitutes a violation of the United Nations Charter. It represents a violation of international law, and it represents a violation of the foundational principle of the inviolability of diplomatic and consular premises. You never attack diplomatic or consular premises. You never attack diplomatic staff. They have immunity no matter what kind of relations the two nations may have. You cannot do this. So this clearly represents a significant violation, a flagrant violation, like Iran says, of these principles. So the question is, why has Israel gone ahead and done such a thing? It is a significant escalation that they have done. And obviously, Iran has vowed to avenge this attack and these killings. Now, it's interesting that the flight path of these F-35 fighter planes that Israel sent to Damascus went first eastwards over Jordan, and it crossed over into Syria only near the Iraq-Syria border. And then it flew westwards into Damascus. So that was a kind of long, winding flight path that these Israeli F-35 fighter planes took. And the question is, why was that? Why did they take a long, winding route instead of going straight for Damascus? And the answer is that the Russians, who are a Syrian ally, the Russians have placed S-300 and S-400 missile defense systems in various parts of Syria. And these F-35s sought to avoid those missile defense systems. And they tried to stay as far away as those S-300s and S-400s as possible. That's quite interesting, given the fact that the Americans claim that the F-35, it is perfectly safe against these Russian missile defense systems. I think they were trying to maintain an abundance of caution. That's what it was. So that is what's happened. 6 missiles, 13 dead. And this represents the biggest attack on the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the IRGC, since the assassination of Soleimani in the year 2020. Now, the US has said that we do not support attacks on diplomatic facilities. That's the reaction that's come out of the United States. That could be read as an implicit condemnation of this Israeli attack in Damascus. Now, nations like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Russia, China, Iraq, Jordan, Oman, Qatar, etc. have all condemned this Israeli attack. So the condemnation has been almost a blanket condemnation. Almost everybody has condemned this attack. Even the Americans have kind of obliquely not supported this attack. Now, it is interesting to see, it is important to note actually, that this war in Gaza has been going on since the 7th of October when Hamas crossed the border and attacked Israel. But Iran has so far avoided being directly involved in this war, and it has avoided a direct confrontation with Israel. It has stayed out of this matter. It may be involved in some way, in some ways indirectly. Obviously, Hamas is said to be a proxy of Iran. Hezbollah, which is located in southern Syria, is said to be a proxy of Iran, and so on. The Houthis are said to be a proxy of Iran. But there's been no direct confrontation between Israel and Iran. And now Israel has taken this step of initiating a direct confrontation with Iran. And they know that Iran has to, well, if they want to maintain any kind of prestige in the world and any kind of credibility in the world, they'll have to respond in some way. The Middle East, there are multiple conflicts and multiple flashpoints within the Middle East. The Middle East itself is a big flashpoint, which could potentially trigger a global conflict. One hopes not. But there are multiple flashpoints within the Middle East. First of all, there's the Syria war, which began in the early 2010s, and the Americans sought to effect a regime change in Syria and get rid of President al-Assad. The Russians stepped in and they saved the presidency and the regime of Mr. al-Assad. And right now, the major Syrian ally is Russia. The Russians have port facilities in Syria. They have they have an air force base in Syria, and they have S-300 and S-400 missile defense systems in this region. So in Syria, you have Russia that's involved. Iran is also involved in supporting Syria, and Hezbollah is said to be an Iranian proxy, which is based in southern Syria. Then there's another conflict happening, the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, in which Iran and India are supporting Armenia, and Turkey is supporting Azerbaijan, and Israel is supporting Azerbaijan. So India and Israel are on opposite sides in this matter. India and Russia are kind of on the same side in this matter. Then you have the situation in Yemen, this war that's been going on for decades over there. And the Ansar Allah faction, the Houthis, are said to be supported by Iran. And the Houthis have been carrying out these activities at sea, targeting certain ships with drones or missiles and so on. And there's also the Somalian piracy that's happening. And India is actively involved in freedom of navigation operations in the Western Indian Ocean region. There's been no confrontation between India and the Houthis. And then there's the Iraq situation. Iraq is under US occupation, but there's a significant Iranian presence in Iraq as well, because Iraq is about 40% Shia and Iran is Shia and so on. So there are all these different, equations that one has to consider when you are trying to understand what's happening in the Middle East region. So Iran has avoided so far a direct confrontation with Israel. It's clear that Iran does not want to get dragged into a regional war. It's happy to play puppeteer and put these pawns on various parts of the chessboard, but it doesn't want to get involved directly. Now the Israelis have put the ball in the court of the Iranians. Iran doesn't want to fight Israel directly, but if Iran does respond now and retaliate, then this gives Israel the justification to expand the war. So does Israel seek to expand the war, or does it feel that Iran is not in a position to retaliate? Well, Iran is definitely in a position to retaliate. Iran has excellent cruise missiles. Iran has good ballistic missiles. Iran has excellent drones as well. So Iran is in a tight spot now. It may have to retaliate to this attack. It may have to, like it says publicly, it will have to avenge this attack. So what kind of response could you see coming in from Iran? So one could imagine, I'm just giving out a hypothetical scenario. I'm not saying this should happen or they should do it, but one could imagine that Iran could attack Israel with a swarm of drones and a number of cruise missiles. Maybe even ballistic missiles, probably cruise missiles, because those are less visible and harder to intercept. You have to intercept them at the last moment, essentially. So it could be a swarm of drones and a number of cruise missiles that could be launched from within Iran, and they could be delivered to strategic locations within Israel. Now, if this happens, it's a further escalation. First of all, Israel goes ahead and attacks a consulate, which is in clear violation of all international law. Then Iran retaliates and possibly, hypothetically attacks positions within Israel. That's a significant escalation, and that could lead to a direct confrontation between Israel and Iran, a significant escalation of the conflict beyond Gaza, beyond the Israel region. And then what could Iran do then? It could activate its proxies in Syria. It could activate Hezbollah and turn the northern border, which is already quite warm, Israel's northern border, which is already quite warm. There's daily exchange of fire with Hezbollah. That could turn hot. That border could turn hot if Iran activates Hezbollah. Iran could activate its various proxies within Iraq, which could be problematic for the US because the American military occupies Iraq. Iran could activate its various proxies in Syria, which could again be a problem for the US because in the eastern part of Syria, there is some US occupation. The Iranians could activate the Houthis in Yemen, which could be problematic for India because the Indian Navy is engaged in freedom of navigation operations in the Western Indian Ocean region, and so on. So there's so much that Iran could do directly and indirectly. There is Iraq, there is the Houthis, there is Syria, there is Jordan, there's Hezbollah, there's Hamas as well. So the Israelis, for some reason, they seem to be looking for an escalation of the war. And that is not good for the region. It's going to cause more instability. They have put Iran in a situation where they will be forced to respond, and there could be a response coming in very soon. Unfortunate, one hopes that this doesn't escalate, but it looks like it will. So I'll keep an eye on what's happening. And yeah, that's about it for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.